Russia announced its ceasefires and the setting up of humanitarian corridors around the besieged cities of Mariupol and Volnovakha.
Vladimir Putin warns the West on no-fly zones, while Volodymyr Zelenskyy calls for the implementation of humanitarian corridors.
A border town in Poland has become the first stop for the massive influx of Ukrainian refugees fleeing the war in their home country.
Across Ukraine, people are trying to flee Russian attacks. This stream of vehicles is headed away from Zaporizhia, where Russia seized Europe's biggest nuclear plant on Friday. Then on Saturday morning, Russia announced a ceasefire would start immediately around the besieged cities of Mariupol and Volnovakha, as well as the setting up of humanitarian corridors to allow civilians to flee. Today, March 5th, from 10 a.m. Moscow time, the Russian side declares a regime of silence and opens humanitarian corridors for the exit of civilians from Mariupol and Volnovakha. Humanitarian corridors and exit routes agreed with the Ukrainian side. Just hours later, Mariupol's mayor said the ceasefire wasn't being respected. Far away from the Black Sea and other cities such as Cherniv in the north, the attacks continued relentlessly. My house burnt down completely. It flared up like a match. My 4 dogs burnt to death. We barely managed to escape alive, including a mother and a child. Everything was burning around us. We're left with nothing. Also on Saturday, the Russian Defense Ministry released video from the Kiev region of its own military. Moscow describes its invasion of Ukraine as a special military operation, and Russians learn little of what's really happening. Their media is being heavily censored.
As Russian helicopters continue to take to the skies of Ukraine, Vladimir Putin has said Moscow will consider any country which seeks to impose a no-fly zone as a participant in the conflict. At a meeting with Aeroflot employees, the Russian president also said the current situation does not yet merit the introduction of martial law.
Martial law can be declared in the event of aggression from outside. I hope that it will not happen, despite irresponsible statements by some officials. We hear about the need to close the airspace over the territory of Ukraine. It cannot be done. It is impossible to do from within Ukraine itself. It is possible to do it from a neighboring state, but any movement in this direction will be considered by us as participation in the armed conflict.
In his daily address to the nation, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy urged his fellow countrymen to stay and continue their fight, while saying he'd endeavour to make humanitarian corridors a reality to save the lives of the elderly, women and children.
We are doing everything on our part to make the agreement work. This is one of the main tasks for today. Let's see if we can go further in the negotiation process.
On a visit to Poland, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Washington is to allocate another 2.5 billion euros on humanitarian aid.
Ukrainian refugees arrive in Poland with light bags but a heavy burden. Stepping down on Polish soil means safety but also sadness for entire worlds left behind. At one of the main arrival hubs along the border in Przemyśl, buses line up to bring passengers to destination. Mainly women and children get off. Men stayed to fight.
I want to go home. I want to go back to Kiev, to my apartment. I don't want to go anywhere. Look at what Putin is doing to us. It could happen to anyone. Anyone.
All paths cross here. People come from all over Ukraine with the same exhausting journeys. Alina is a dentist from Zaporizhia. She has just learned the nuclear plant near her city was bombed.
I lost my home and I lost my normal life. I had job there, but now I need to run away from my country because some crazy person I don't know what he wants.
Refugees wait in the cold. For many, this is only a stopover towards destinations still unknown.
Ну, на самом деле, никто этого не ожидал. Это все очень внезапно и резко произошло.
No one expected this. It all happened so fast. Personally, I still can't believe it. The whole world is talking about it. And it's scary to think that something like this can happen in the 21st century. I believe in our men, those who volunteer to defend our country. I think that we will win because Russia fights with the army and we fight with the people.
В России как бы воюет армия, а у нас народ.
Some spend just hours here waiting for the next bus, but others need to stay.
This is an old supermarket. It's been turned into a reception center. Refugees arrive at any moment. They arrive continuously from the border by bus. They wait for other buses to take them to other locations, or some of them spend the night here.
700,000 refugees have crossed into Poland in the first 10 days of war. Polish authorities are trying to adapt fast to face the Ukrainian exodus. This reception center was opened within days. The UNHCR says an escalation of the conflict could drive the number of refugees up to 4 million.
Several hundred followers of right-wing groups in Serbia rallied in central Belgrade on Friday in support of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Chanting "Russia, Russia," the protesters held up Russian flags and photos of Vladimir Putin, as organisers pledged wider demonstrations if Belgrade joins Western sanctions against Russia.
Ukraine is currently being liberated from neo-Nazis. There's nothing more to be said. Western systems penetrated Ukraine. Russians or brothers are liberating it. We hope it's liberating the whole world. I can't say I'm happy because of what's going on. We are in shock. Brothers killing each other, it's a tragedy. But this had to be done. Evil has reached Russian borders, and if it wasn't for this, there would have been a world war. So this is better than waiting for a bigger conflict.
Serbia has criticised the attack on Ukraine but has refused to impose sanctions against its traditional Slavic and Orthodox Christian ally, Russia. Many Serbs view Russia as a friendly nation and believe it has been wrongly vilified by the West.
Sanctions have forced Russia's flagship airline Aeroflot to announce an end to almost all of its international flights. From Tuesday, it'll only fly to neighbouring Belarus, one of Russia's few European allies. Before the war in Ukraine, it used to fly to 146 cities in 52 countries across the world. What happens next to the planes that Aeroflot has leased from foreign companies but are sitting on the tarmac at Russian airports is unclear. But the European Union has given them until March 28th to end any rental contracts in Russia.
If you're in Russia and you want to log into your Facebook account, you're likely to see this message. Moscow has completely blocked access to Facebook and Twitter in retaliation for the social media platforms placing restrictions on Russian state-owned media. Russia is broadening its efforts to control the spread of information on the invasion of Ukraine. On Friday, Russian lawmakers passed a bill imposing harsh jail terms and fines for publishing what they consider fake news.
The blocking of state media has encouraged a Russian response of blocking Western headquartered digital platforms, removing a key channel through which prominent Russians have been expressing their dissatisfaction for the war. So that takes away a key form of protest for them. But these blocks also restrict the availability of direct-to-public appeals like those of Zelensky's to the Russian people to try to erode their support for this invasion.
In response to these new laws, media outlets such as the BBC and CNN have announced that they will be temporarily suspending the work of their journalists in Russia. The Kremlin's invasion of Ukraine has sparked numerous anti-war protests inside of the country. More than 8,000 people have been detained since the invasion began on February 24th, according to the monitoring group OVD Info.